Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's August 16th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And just a quick look at our daily chart. You can see we pushed on lower here. We bounced right off that trend line uh, and just bounced barely off the low of the day. And then we opened up and have pushed lower. My guess is we'll probably trade back into this range, even if only momentarily, after we open tomorrow. We'll see what happens, but we could continue to push lower. Um, but my guess is we'll probably bounce here at least momentarily, even if we're going lower. So we'll see what happens. But there's a look at it on the daily chart. Very bearish day. We really on the 2000 tick chart, we had two legs down, almost two perfect measured legs. Let's flip over there and take a look at the 2000 tick. Okay, here it is, and you can see that there was two ways to get a target here. First, you'd get the width of the channel, which is this dashed line. You can see we went further than that. And the other one is to measure this first leg down and see if we get a measured leg. And you see we actually went a little further than that. This sold on off into the close, but that was pretty much a perfect measured move before we pushed it a little bit lower there. So that was how I saw it. Two legs down, two measured legs down. But let's come back up here and start our day off and go from there. You had to be a little patient today. 7 o'clock came right in here. There's a second entry short, but signal bar is not very good. That was right at 7, just a few minutes after 7. So if you had a decent signal bar, you might have even still considered that one, but we'd bounce right here pretty much close to these other lows, so it's a little dangerous without a really good. If this would have been the signal bar, that would have been a great short, but um, I was a little leery of it. And then of course we come down here and we fell on the breakout lower. I originally had this a little higher, but I moved it lower as the day kind of progressed. But we had a little failed breakout here. I don't see any you don't want to go long out of that congestion. We are a little ways away from the EMA, and that is a higher low. Maybe you take that, but I'd probably wait. It's early in the day. You'll probably get something better than that. And then suddenly we get a second entry long here. Signal bar does not qualify. Really, you make a 2-bar matching low. So you could use that signal bar, but it's got so much stem on it. This is not an engulfing bar, so you couldn't enter in on the engulfing move. But this is basically a double bottom here, so that's a first entry, second entry. So if it breaks above that bar right there, it's a failed second entry short. And that also gives you a second entry long. So if you notice that, you want to take that, I think you're okay there to take that trade. And it's good. It's good for a scalp, and that's really about it. There's a higher low here, but again, this is your signal bar, and it just doesn't qualify. A nice move up. There's a triple test here, but that just looks too congested to me. We're not quite. We did bounce off that midline a couple of times, but we're not quite back to the 21 EMA. I don't like that trade. If you took it, you could say, hey, it's a triple test, and we weren't back to the highs yet. So the problem is, I don't know which way this broke on the engulfing bar, since that's an inside kind of a doji, or not an inside, but an engulfing bar already itself. That's really where the second entry triggered on this engulfing bar, and you just don't want to take that trade right there. So this one ends up breaking lower and coming back up, but that's like a third entry by that time. So I just don't like that. It's too congested, and you're too close to the highs here. I think you're better off to wait. Um, we do make a high. You do get the break here and a couple of legs up. And there's a nice bearish bar there with a 2-bar matching high, way away from the EMA. Again, it looks a little congested, but that's what you usually find at the highs. We didn't quite make the high here, so I think you're better off waiting on a lower high. Maybe you take that trade, but I think you want to wait on a lower high, and we just really never get one. So there's a failure here, but it doesn't set up very good. I actually like going long possibly here because you got a first entry, second entry, and you got a break and new low here, and there is enough room back up there. This Then you get this next one. I would not. You might have entered that on the engulfing bar. I wouldn't enter that on the close right there, right into that EMA. Not after a break here, because you could get another push down, which you end up doing. So if you entered here, you're probably okay on the scalp. Here, you have to enter on the engulfing bar, and then you got just enough room. If you wait till that closes, I just think you're too close to that high right there, and you see what happens. You run into a double top, and it turns down. There is a second entry short there. I'm not real crazy about that one. You might could have entered there. It's really hard to reverse like that when you're thinking long. And we did just come off the highs, and it's possible this could be a range, but you really don't know that just yet. You got a channel working up here, and you might get there's a good chance prices are going to try to push to make a new high. And so you got to be real careful going short here. But there's reasons to like that trade, especially if you didn't go long there. It turns out to be a pretty nice move, almost a perfect measured leg down. And then of course it bounces and we head right back up. You get two legs up there. That's a second entry short, a little lower high. It breaks higher and turns down. It's such a bearish bar that far away from the EMA. I like going short there. Then you come back up and get another chance at it. Now you could argue you got a triple test across there and another big bearish bar. And you actually get a lower high here, but signal bar is no good. There's actually a second entry short right there. I did not mark it because it's so close to those lows, but it's a first entry, second entry. You do have the two bar matching highs. That's another one maybe you take. It's not a perfect setup, but you could also, actually you can't argue that's a failure because the failure was right there, and that's the reason I didn't like it. You got to go low at the short at the very low of the move. There's clearly two legs down there, but I don't like that one. Then you make two legs down in reverse here. No real reason to get long there, and then no reason to get short here. Same thing, no long setup. Finally, you get a close outside and a couple of legs up, and you definitely got a triple test there. Fairly decent signal bar. I like going short there. Runs down, chopping sideways. Notice you make a new high right there, and then you try to go higher once, twice. So that's a failed second entry long. It is right into the middle of the range there. I've marked this because it does confirm that trend line, and we've tried to go higher and can't, so the odds are we're probably pushing lower. This is close to being green because we are right into the midline, and sometimes that can be dangerous. I can't remember how much room was there. I always measure it, and that has a lot to do with it. I mean, there's just enough room there, really. So maybe you take that. Again, it's close to being green, though. I liked it, to be honest with you. That's the reason I marked it red. Here you tried to go higher 3 times. It's just a first entry, and it is the first break of that little trend, micro trend channel. And we just bounced off the lows, too. So I really liked that setup, but I was so scared of it because we just kind of bounced off the lows here. But it turned, and there was no break and retest of the high, but there is a triple test there. It is a very bearish bar, and it is right off the key entry point and the EMA, and there is room to get out. So, if you took it, I wouldn't beat you up, but I was really afraid of it in real time, and I did not mark it because I wasn't willing to take it even on an aggressive trade. It's one of those that you say, hey, this is probably going to work, but it just doesn't set up perfectly, and there's some reasons to be concerned, and sometimes you just have to make a judgment call on those, and you're probably better off just to skip it. At least that's the way I felt about it. But we dropped on down. Of course, you expect the breakout to fail. We do get a triple test here, but no room to scalp out. It would have worked, but you got to be careful with that. Then, of course, you get a first entry. You get a lower high here, but that's moved too far for a tradable lower high. And you just don't get a chance to get any more of that move to a new low. Notice you get the break and 2 legs down to a new low. And that takes you into the 1 o'clock, actually into noon. This was an FOMC day. It's actually a minutes release. But still, you want to be flat before that comes out. And you want to wait till it settles down. So really by 1:15 or so, you could tell it wasn't going to be too crazy. There's not a whole lot of volatility there. And notice that we got this break and moved to a new low, and then we tried to go lower again and failed. And here you get a reversal. Notice you got a new low and you get a first entry, it pushes up, second entry. If it breaks above that, generally I like to see it retest from the upper side. But if it breaks above here, it's got to go back above the EMA. And if it does that, you'll probably get a scalp. At least retest these highs over here. And we're probably going to go higher again. And we get a trend, at least a short-term trend up here. So I like that one. I don't see anything else up through here. There's a triple test there to go short. But you're expecting prices to try to make a new high, but you're so far away from the EMA, but you're back inside the range too. I didn't mark it. There's just not much room back down there. I think it's a little risky. It looks a little congested too. But notice you actually get two legs back, and it bounces right off the EMA, and you're expecting prices to try to retest this high and maybe get back in the range. I like going long on that one. It did close below here, but most breakouts failed. Even though this went much lower, it eventually fails, at least momentarily. And of course, this does run to a new high, and then it runs out of steam completely and sells off. And we start that second leg down. I don't see anything in here worth getting short. There is a pullback here, but again, no setup. And then notice what happens. We make a new low and we try to go higher once, twice, three times, maybe even four times. But notice how that's right off that trend line, and then you get the lower high. I like going short right there. Very bearish bar. And then you get a failure right here, which is a continuation pattern in this case. And off it goes again. So I like both of those. Drops on down. You really get a good sell-off here. There's no other entries here you really want to fool with. It makes the measure move and then some. And notice how we try to go lower and we bounce. And I like this one just because it's a first entry, second entry, and you got plenty of room back down to this little double bottom it made. So there's a good chance with that being the first break. That's such a bearish channel. You do have your measured leg yet, but that's the first close outside. So it's probably going to attempt a new low. And with that being a first entry, second entry, it doesn't really look like two legs up, but it's also a new high here. So first entry, second entry, so it's also a failure. When you combine those, I think it's worth going short there, and it is good for a scalp. And then boom, it bounces. That takes you into 230. So this one's close to being green because it's just so late in the day, but it's just hard to resist a second entry short with a decent signal bar, and it's only like 6 ticks. Very low risk. You can get in that with an 8-tick stop rule. So it's hard to pass one up like that. Those are almost gimmies in a trend that strong. But anyway, there it is. That's how I saw it today. It got a little, I mean, as good as that move was, there just weren't any real good setups there, unfortunately. So that's the way it happens sometimes, but we had some good trades up here off the top of this resistance, and there's a few in both these trends here. So of course you had to sit this out right in here. But anyway, there it is. That's how I saw it. Not quite as late as it was last night, but still a little late. I should be kind of back on track tomorrow. Try to get everything uploaded by 5 or 6 o'clock at the latest. But anyway, hope you had a good trading day. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.